And we're live. Oh my goodness, guys. You know what? If you guys could have just peeked in on me and Tina's conversation before this, it was so good. Sorry. We'll talk a little bit about it during today's show for sure. But oh my goodness, I'm excited to have her on. I'm kicking off. I miss career days. So if anybody who doesn't know me, I used to do lots of career days as an author, as a therapist. I've worked in schools teaching as well as doing therapeutic services for years. And so usually around this time of year, we're doing career day. So I'm usually with kids reading my book. And you know what? I've been hearing a lot of people say, you know what? I don't necessarily know if I like my career or what I'm doing, or I like it, but I may want to pivot. And what I hear sometimes from them is this shift in mindset that they really kind of don't know where they're going. So I was excited to have Tina on because she is a mindset coach. She is the founder of The Selfish Mama. And a lot of times I feel this is applicable. What her work is applicable to women is what she works with, but also I feel like this is applicable, some of these principles, to everybody, because I feel like sometimes women do this in families, but I find men kind of don't have that balance with work sometimes, that they're working to provide for the family, so they feel like they can't really have that balance or flexibility or setting boundaries. And so I was really excited to talk with her about what The Selfish Mama is. The languaging is just beautiful. You guys know me, I'm a communications coach, so I'm all about your wording. I literally just posted something on LinkedIn about wording. Me and my husband have like this battle because like I don't have that many connections on LinkedIn, but he does, which is funny because I introduced him. And so I have like 1,000 views on this one post that talks about wording. So it's so interesting that you brought up that you, after doing this work, the words start to find you. So tell me about the work that you're doing, how these words kind of found you for what you're really coining that you're doing with this great organization, The Selfish Mama.
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for having me. Apparently, I need to connect with you on LinkedIn, so we'll make sure that happens after after the show. But hello, everyone. My name's Tina Unruh, and thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Like you said, they matter, right? Words matter. They don't just matter to us, but they're essential for communication with other people. And right before the show, we were talking about people's journeys, right? And the fact that women are possibly considering the realization really that maybe they don't want the job that they've had, right? And so there's that great resignation or the great reshuffle and whatever other terms it's going by now. But I think I think it's incredibly representative of what happened to me just like 5 years ago. So just a really quick snap of it is, I finished high school. I actually got a job right out of high school. I did not go to college directly out of high school. I'm a Gen Xer. And, I just continued to get the next job and the next job and the next job and, just kind of allowed the path to take me where it was going to take me. And I think a lot of people um, use like the next job as, um, the stepping stone, right? For either a goal that they want to reach or it's monetarily, right? So if you get the offer for the next job, if it's a salary increase, right, then you take it.
Right.
Like whatever reasoning you use to move on to another job. So anyway, I just continued that kind of climb until I became a government employee.
Mm,
And honestly, I was just miserable in my job.
wow.
I had a baby in 2009 and I really struggled with work-life balance. I felt like my job was stealing my time
Mm,
away from being with my kid.
right.
And so I really just wanted somehow that time back. And I decided to pursue life coaching. And that's a whole nother topic. Maybe it's applicable to the conversation, maybe it isn't, but I'll just kind of put it on the back burner for now. I pursued life coaching as a new career because, like we were talking about before the show, I just wanted more time freedom. I wanted more control over how much time I was spending in a job so that I could be home more with my family. And long story short, the pursuit of a new career ended up changing me. Like, I
Mm.
was like, "Wait a minute, that I did not sign up for that. I don't know how that happened, but that was not what was supposed to happen."
Not the plan. It wasn't how this was supposed to go.
Right? Completely transformed me. I mean, completely transformed me. And I ended up staying in my government job for another 3 to 4 years,
Mhm.
before I finally left, to pursue my own business full time, Selfish Mama. And really the crux of Selfish Mama, it's my coaching company. So right now it's just me, but it will be a team at some point. So it will get bigger. Um, but in essence, the crux of it is focusing on self. And that is almost like unheard of when it comes to motherhood. We are
Right,
taught, for the most part, that motherhood is selfless, that you
right.
must be giving all the time, that it's 100% servitude, right?
Yeah,
And trust me when I say that, I know that there are certain aspects and phases of motherhood that certainly are that. Like, clearly, our infant cannot provide for themselves, right? And things like that. So there are clearly phases in which there is a lot more selflessness, right?
right.
That happens. But I would argue that that selflessness is one that we choose,
Mhm.
right? And there's a huge difference in that. And that speaks to the mindset part that you were talking about right at the beginning, right? There is a difference in how we show up for other
Right,
people, for our babies, for our partners, for our coworkers, for our bosses, for, any volunteer organization, whatever it is, when we choose to show up that way
true.
versus feeling resentful because we think we have to show up that way,
Right.
right? And so that is kind of what Selfish Mama does. Selfish Mama, for the most part, is this idea that focus on yourself, like go inside. And it doesn't mean, getting your nails done, going to the spa. Although I will say that doesn't hurt. I love it when my nails are painted and I feel good and I get a massage, right? Like
Right.
self care in whatever way it means and matters to you, please do it. But Selfish Mama is much deeper than that. It means, what do you stand for? Right? What are your
Mhm.
values? What do you want this life to mean to you? What's meaningful? How do you feel fulfilled? How do you rejuvenate yourself so that way you can then show up for others and yourself in the world in meaningful ways? And so it's kind of like a long story, but when I focused on myself, when I took that leap to go to life coaching and it cost me, an investment of money in myself and an
Right.
incredible investment of time, um, it was really perplexing, quite frankly, because I was so angry at my job for this 9 to 5 job that I had. But yet, when I then pursued life coaching, I not only had the 9 to 5 and I still had the family, but then I was spending 5 to 9 hours additional a week
Yep.
pursuing this thing, and I couldn't have been happier.
Mm.
So that right there, like, like something has to shift in you when you realize, like, wait a minute, something's different here. Why am I not now pissed at sorry. Why am I now not upset, right?
Oh, you're totally fine. My brother was on here for a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, "Mom, do not call me. Like, your son is grown. Please do not so
So,
you're
yeah.
totally fine, but I think you said a lot of important things that the journey that you pursued transformed you in a way that even with the 9 to 5, it still kind of hung in there. You said you had more to do, but it felt like less. It sounds like it was one of those things where you're on this journey to doing more, to pursuing something different. And then one thing I really love that you said, and you can definitely correct me if I'm wrong, that being focused on self is different than self-care.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more
Yes.
about that, because I feel like a lot of times when we say, well, focus on yourself, you automatically go to self-care. Now, what you're
Mhm.
saying, the nails, the hair, the massages, that's caring for yourself. But being focused on yourself so that you can then be intentional and show up in your life in meaningful ways is different than self-care. So tell me more about the difference.
Yeah. So I think you just used a word because talking about communication and effectiveness and the power that words have, right?
Mhm.
Intentionality is key. Intentionality is huge, right?
It-
Self-care is definitely a vital and essential um, way of caring for ourselves, right? Just so that we can feel good about
right.
ourselves, and it can energize us, right? As we all know, everybody is different. So, a massage may help one person, and another person maybe they're having a lot of anxiety at the time, right? Because they're thinking of all the things that they're not getting done. So the massage isn't really rejuvenating to them at that moment. You know what I mean? So that's just a really kind of surface level example, but when it comes down to it, self-care is certainly a way that we can kind of pamper ourselves and just give us a moment of peace and care and attention and nurture, um, so that way we can feel valued and attended to. But
Mhm.
when we focus on self in a truly meaningful way, it goes so much deeper than just self-care. We are talking about identifying what you value,
Mm.
right? How you expend your energy. What is
Right.
important to you, right? Because just like I said, I was mad at my job because I felt like it was the thief of time for me.
Right.
And then I then add on to it another thief of time in
Right.
essence, right? But the pursuit of the life coaching and all the hours of effort that it demanded, I was willing to give that time. I wanted to give that time because it was in the pursuit of the thing that I thought was going to be the answer, right?
So
To
less
where I was headed.
grieving.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was going to say, so it sounds like you, once you kind of came to this conclusion, it was less about the stealing of time and more about the intentionality of how you were spending it. I'm spending it at a job and I have these various reasons why I don't want to be here, maybe. And one thing you said earlier was you let the path kind of, I don't know if this was with us or on here, but you said you let the path kind of create itself. You wherever it pursued the promotions, the jobs, one step after the other, it flowed out for itself. And I think that is something important in a career, that if you're not intentional, you'll end up at a place you don't like and you can't stand because you let the path create itself for various reasons. And I
Mhm,
think even understanding that if you're creating this path, if you're going on this journey, it's a journey, right? It's
mhm,
not the end destination. And I think sometimes we take jobs or we do things for the destination, but it sounds like when you say, you know what, I'm gonna pursue this thing that I like, I'm gonna pursue this thing that brings me joy, that you decided I'm going to put my time in a different aspect because somewhere down the line I'll get it back.
mhm. Yes. And so you broke up a little bit there, but I think what you were talking about was what we were discussing earlier, which is like the lack of intentionality, right?
Yes.
In the pursuit of our careers or even any other ways that we want to show up in the world, right?
Yep.
And I think that that right there is probably one of the biggest changes for me when I went through life coaching. I actually not only gained an intentionality and an awareness that I lacked before, but it also enhanced my spirituality. I would say that I definitely resonated as someone who was spiritual since I was probably late teens, early 20s. Um, but going through the life coaching program that I did, I actually started to believe and behave in a way that made me a co creator of my life,
Mm.
not just someone who's trying to follow and feel like, okay, well, where am I supposed to be? Right. And there's always that pursuit and pressure of, am I in the right spot? Am I where I'm supposed to be? Am I, you know, following God's plan? Right. Like there's all this weight. And I often find other people asking that same very question, right? Am I where I'm supposed to be? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And I feel like for me, I finally connected the dots. At least it feels good to me, feels
Yeah.
right to me to
Right.
say that God is within me. So then
Hmm.
when I am following my intuition, when I have that nudge that says I should go here, I should pursue this thing, I should do this over here, it's a much more intentional and thought out process now about, okay, I know this is now where I'm supposed to go. This is what I feel is the next step. And so we're headed there, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's scary, even if I don't know how it's going to turn out. Right.
Oh
And
yeah.
so now I use those indicators of change as my guidance system. And that speaks more too about the focus on self, right? Because at the end of the day, at the end of my life, I want to be able to say that I tried to fulfill my purpose as much as I could. And I feel like our purpose is us. Like at the end of our lives, we're going to be talking about how we showed up,
Yeah.
right? The relationships
Yes.
that we had, the way that we did our own self-growth, but also helped support others, you
Right.
know? And so I just think it's everything. And everything still comes back to us. We're still a piece of a puzzle in the fabric of the lives of so many other people, right? And so if we keep
Right.
kind of showing up in that live inside out kind of way, I think we can feel much more in alignment with career choices and motherhood and marriage and all of it.
My husband always says, he is a big believer that God gives you the blueprint. Like he's like, people always want to ask, people want, but it's like you're born with the blueprint. You're just checking in for the navigation part of it. You know what I mean? Like
I
you're
love
born
that.
with the blueprint. And so I do understand it. It's like one of those things. And I think this is could be sometimes what's missing out of people's careers, right? That you're in pursuit of. But one thing that I realized in college one thing I realized in college was that a lot of times women would pursue passion, right? Men would pursue money. Like a lot of my male friends,
Mhm.
they were going to school to make money. They weren't necessarily worried about the gifts. They're like, I'm gonna just go make this money, get this job. What's the highest paying job,
Right.
career, or major I could get? Right? Computer science, boom. And it left a lot of them struggling in the middle
Mhm.
because what happens is you pursue this money, but no one ever tells you the hardness of a computer science degree, right? If you don't like math, if you don't like science, if you don't like coding, you getting a computer science degree, you're going to also have to get certificates. It's not just the degree. You're going to have to learn to do these things inside and out before somebody gives you a high paying job.
Right.
And if you don't like it, you're not going to finish. Or if you would always struggle with math, you're going to have to get a tutor. Well, you may not feel like doing that in college. But a lot of times I felt like when I think about when I said I wanted to be a teacher, it was something that I felt like, and it's interesting because I've always wanted to write. It's always something that is called to me. So when I decided I wanted to be a teacher because I felt like that was stable, it just went so bad. I went to, they make you do it's not an internship, but it's like 20 hours inside of a classroom over the course of the semester. Oh my God, y'all. Like if I told while I was there, I was like, if they give one more standardized test, if they give these kids in first grade took 12 to 15 standardized tests a year, I said, oh, I'm not doing this. I wouldn't give those kids no tests. And so I knew for me, I'm not doing that. What's next? And psychology and mental health really ended up being not only a place where I found that I was the bond, like as a therapist, I'm really good. I turned that into coaching, but also what I found was I could use that in my writing and teach people the skills that they need
Mhm.
inside this thing that I loved. And so I think that what you say about pursuing purpose, sometimes that leads you to what you're good at, your gifts. It leads you to this blueprint of I should pursue this opportunity. It's been times I'm like, something's like, don't you go over there, don't you don't you dare set your foot over. I remember thinking a couple of years ago when I sell Mary Kay. So a couple of years ago, when I was younger, I wanted to pursue this person, and something was so loud in my head, I almost got sick. Like, do not recruit her. And I'm like, I need a 10. They're like, no, you hear your voice telling you, dude, make left, make right, don't go down that street. You know what I mean? So I think that it's important, like you're saying, that your purpose calls to you almost. And if you're doing something outside of it, it'll wait. But it'll also keep calling you, and you'll be at that 9 to 5 and be like, because some people I feel like are called to the corporations, right? They go up the steps, they love it, right? VPs, senior VPs, presidents, CEOs. We need those people because they lead masses of people and help lots of people bring home a living to their families, right? But
Right.
we also need those people that pursue something different and teach people that that's not the only way.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I actually think that because of the recent um, dynamic changes in the
Mm.
workforce, I feel like there's a lot of employers now who are changing the way
Yep.
that they recruit and who they're seeking to hire. It seems to be evolving now more towards a skills-based,
Yeah.
um, hiring model than an education-based,
Right.
hiring model, and I mean, I'm here for it. I am
Right.
here for it because I believe that a lots of people are capable of learning whatever it is that they want to learn, right? They don't need to have necessarily a default um like aptitude for it. You know how some people are
Right.
just like gravitate towards math, right? Or
Yep.
they don't have scholastics to show, that they're good in science or whatever. But I feel like after over time, you can determine that, hey, I really now have an interest in this new field, right? And if you have an interest in it, then again, that's kind of like what we're talking about. Like if you are tuned in enough to know where you are being pulled, right? That something is just easy enough to be calling to you in that direction. That's like the ease that we're supposed to be following instead of the slog of like pushing through thinking that we
Right.
know the answer or the best way towards something.
But and then you know what? That is something that's insightful, right? That you could be intuitive enough to figure that out, that or learn to be intuitive enough to kind of figure that out, that you're moving towards the ease and not the sludge, kind of pulling yourself through. It's like, oh, not again. What's interesting is one of my kids felt this way about school at one point when they were younger. I saw it in their face. They would say they liked school. They'd always liked school, but all of a sudden it was like school again. And when is the next break? And do we get to teach a work day? And I'm like, I told my husband, oh no, we got to get out of this school. He's like, I'm dead serious. Like, I know what we're going to do. We're going to figure this out. And the school he's at now, we're like, can we buy a house somewhere else? No. Can I still go to this school? Well, not if we don't live in that county. Well, no, y'all just gonna have to stay. You know what I mean? And that's the passion for learning I wanted. And I think we sometimes forget that as adults, we should still have that passion for things that we do. Will we have to sometimes take jobs that we necessarily don't like or aren't fond of? Yes, because I feel like, and like you said, that skill based set, because my generation, I'm considered a millennial, which is kind of aggravating because I'm considered a millennial, but they blame millennials for everything. But I'm like, dude, I'm almost 40. You can't be blaming me for spring break. Like at this point, we have to quit. It's two generations, almost three at this point under us. I'm not on a beach at spring break spreading COVID. I'm here held up in my closet taking crisis calls. Okay. So I just like I'm a millennial, but dude, we're like, God, we're our kid. My kid is almost in double digits. Like and I didn't have a kid early. I had him late 20s, like
Yeah,
almost 30. So it's not like
yeah.
we're like middle aged at this point. So I
Mhm.
really love that you said the skills that people acquire because we can get skills anywhere. What was very interesting to me was I looked Girl Scouts of Atlanta was hiring a CEO. And I'm like, man, that sounds cool. And I read the list and I'm like, I fit all this stuff. But if you would look at my job experience, I've never been technically a CEO of anything but my own company, but I had every qualification they asked for of a CEO. And so I think that we had gotten to a place with this education that I remember they said 9 out of 10 people weren't even using their degrees. Like we're going to school, taking out loans, getting these degrees and weren't even using them for what we were going into work for. So I
Yeah.
think having a skill set that you can use, understanding your gifts and really leaning into what your purpose is what you're I feel like you're saying helps you really create this intentional life and be intentional about your space. You know what I mean? As moms, one thing we talked about was just being intentional about the journey, that on this journey sometimes we rush to get to the end only to want to do something else or to be like, man, that's not what I thought it was. Because the journey, I think about the road to the Super Bowl or when you're going to a competition, the preparation, the bonding, the things that you do to get there. It's like I actually had more fun preparing for the Super Bowl in Atlanta's case than losing it. You know what I mean? So I think that I love that skill set that people are hiring. They're hiring for the skill set now. I mean, you look at companies, they're having to redefine it because this next generation, they're not millennials who let you blame them for everything, right? They're like, okay,
Mhm.
great. What we're not going to do is take out loans. What we're not going to do is go to college if you still have them, figure it out. Like we'll do something else. We will work somewhere else and do something else if it means we are in debt like the generation before us. And
Mhm.
I think that companies were forced to do the skill set, which is good, because why should I have to? Why should I
Yeah.
have to take out 50, 60, $70,000 in loans to pursue a degree that I'm not gonna, in my case, with therapy, you do kind of follow this path. And funny that you said that life coaching was transforming you. In therapy,
Mhm.
they tell us up front, dude, you cannot be a therapist if you don't work out your own junk. Buckle up and get ready.
Mhm.
They warn you up front, buckle up and get ready. So I feel like the beauty is of this journey that people take, and that you, as a person that wants people to pursue themselves, helps people kind of cultivate or curate this journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that, you said a few different things, right? The one that I wanna focus on is the journey
Mm,
because, for me, like we talked about at the beginning, for me, it's the journey of self, right? Like,
yes.
why are you here and what are you supposed to be learning and doing this entire time? And I hear a lot of the pressure of people wanting to find their purpose, right?
Yep.
As if it's external to themselves. And I don't believe that to be the case. I do think that it can manifest that way, for sure. And especially as moms, a
Mhm.
big portion, I think, of our purpose are the babies that we're raising, like without a doubt. Um,
Right.
but that still, to me, speaks to, your internal purpose, right?
Right.
Because it's a role that you play, right? Of motherhood. And that
Right.
that role changes and evolves, of course, as your kids age and as you mature yourself. And you
Right.
and you mentioned something earlier too that I didn't wanna lose, and it was something about, like, moving to, um, like, the next step of a job and, doing so intentionally. I've lost it. If I come back to it, I'll say it. Ah, it was so good though. But, at the end of the day, when I think about, like, how I wanna show up, it is so helpful for me to kind of take a step back
Mhm.
and think about, my place and my journey. So here's like a really good example. Um, when I find myself struggling as a mom with a particular behavior that my child is exhibiting, right? Or um yeah, let's just leave it at that, right? Like bedtime.
That's a
Lots of
good
moms
one.
hate bedtime. Oh my Jesus, it's so hard, right? Bedtime is hard.
Every mom. If you, I don't know one mom. You know what? Every mom. My mom may be the only, and I feel because she's a teacher and she had to put 30 kids to nap on a consistent basis for 30 years.
Yeah.
So, but every mom that doesn't do that every day,
Mhm,
yeah, right. Bedtime
mhm,
is like not again.
right, right? And so I will share with you, like, how I transformed this. It doesn't mean that it's always perfect and it's always great, but it definitely made a huge difference in how I show up at bedtime. So bedtime used to be, like, really, really hard for me when my kid was younger. I think all moms can appreciate the fact that we want bedtime to go more quickly than it does. We want the process to go more smoothly than it does.
Right.
And at the end of the day, we are just out of energy.
Right. We're
We
done.
want we want those kids in bed knocked out so we can just have some peace and
Right.
be able to read our book or binge watch TV or eat
Right.
Haagen-Dazs or, like, whatever it is that you wanna do at night, like, that is what you wanna be doing.
Stare at the wall if it means I don't have the answer to my name 50,000 times. Right. And then it's like we're ready to wind down, and you can just see in the little kid's face that like they drunk 2 cups, like just now, 2 more cups of coffee, and they're wired and ready to go. So
Mhm.
yes, I feel that.
Yeah. And so it always felt like this tension, right?
Mhm.
Like, I would always have this, like, anxiety build around nighttime because 'cause I'm like, "Okay, here we go," right? It's gonna be the same exact thing, and she's not gonna wanna go to bed, and she's gonna wanna read the book 40 times and,
Right.
whatever it is, right? And when I started life coaching, they go through, like, this, um framework of different like mental energetic states.
Mm,
And so it gives you an ability to kind of show up in a very intentional way, right? And I was able to kind of look through that lens and say, okay, well, what else is here for me to learn? Because this is really hard, right? And I don't want this to feel hard. And I don't want my kid to sense that I just want her to hurry up and go to bed. And that I
mm,
don't want, do you see what I'm saying? So it was more like,
yeah,
okay, let's change perspectives. Let me
right.
put myself in her shoes and kind of see what it looks like from the other side, in essence. And of course, I can only do that so much, right? With a little kid. She doesn't have the language like we were talking about to be able to communicate her perspective. So I had to try to do my best to do it on her behalf. And it was really enlightening. It elevated the fact that probably she's just really connected to me and
Yeah.
doesn't want to separate from
Not
me.
ready for the
Right?
day to end. I love my mom. When I close my eyes, I know she's not going to be here. So I'm going to lollygag a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm going to hold on to those moments for as long as I can.
Exactly. Um, the other issue is maybe I'm not acknowledging the amount of time my child needs to break free from, you know, the
I love
the connection, right? And as a working mom, can we talk about how hard that is?
right.
Because when I was a working mom, I mean, especially when she was younger, I mean, I would come home and at best I'd have 2 hours with her awake.
Right.
So, like, the last thing I wanted to do was put her to bed earlier,
Right.
right? Because I'm like, I wanna spend time with my kid. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I did it. I did it. And so even though on one end that was really painful, it made nighttime easier because I
Mm,
had realized that I wasn't acknowledging the need for her to be able to have that as like a bonding time.
yeah.
And so I leaned into the fact that that is what she needs, right? So we read the book, 7 times or whatever it was that we needed to because that was the book that she was in love with at the time, right? And we would just without the pressure of
Yeah.
feeling like it was supposed to go faster,
Yes. Or they
without the
need
pressure
it,
and expectation.
right? Yeah, they have to be in at 8. They need to be in at 8:30. They have to be in at 9. You know what I mean? When you say, "Okay, it's bedtime, let's just have a routine. When we finish, it doesn't feel like such a weight."
Right. And I still tried to have those time frames. It's just that
Right.
I elongated the process for her. Like,
Makes sense.
because I stopped putting so many expectations on her that
Mhm.
she would be done faster than she was feeling like she could be done.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
really that's where the resistance came from, was my expectations of her being able or she should be
Right.
able to brush her teeth in, 2
2
minutes, not
minutes, 30
30,
seconds.
right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Or go to bed after reading the book only twice instead of 17 times, or not come out of bed 40 times, right? For one
For
last
what?
a drink
Right.
of water. I need a blanket. The I need
You
the
know,
fan on,
not in the room, I'm gonna ask for it. Right.
right? And so, it was really just becoming very intentional and being interested more in releasing the expectations and leaning into what was.
Mhm.
What kind of daughter do I have? What does she
Yeah.
need? And what does that bring up in me? Right? It brought up my lack of patience,
Mm.
right? It brought up the fact that I had expectations on a child who could not meet those expectations,
Yeah.
right? And that was me. That's not her, that's me. Who says she has to go to bed at 8:30, right? Like, that's me saying that, or 7:30 or whatever the time is, right?
Mhm.
Um, who's saying that she should have to be able to brush her teeth in 2 minutes and not 17?
Right.
Like,
I'm
some of this
glad because
obviously.
literally I was showing my daughter and she had brushed them yesterday. She just stood at the sink for as long as she wanted. I put toothbrush on her too, but right now I have the flexibility to do that. She wanted on there 7 times. This wasn't at night either. This was during the day, but she brushed her teeth like 10 times before I finally was like, all right, are you hungry? You want to do something else? So I see what you're saying, like 2 minutes versus 17. Totally
Mhm,
fine.
mhm. And, for me, it was such a release of stress.
Right.
I was able to show up better. It doesn't mean again that every single day was fun and wonderful, especially as we transitioned. But once we finally got to a point of transition where it was like, okay, I'm acknowledging the fact that you want more time with me at night. I'm acknowledging the fact that, you don't want to feel rushed,
Right.
right? I'm acknowledging the fact that, you need or want certain comforts. And so
Hmm.
we will work together to establish this routine, right? And so there's a lot of people obviously that are not fans of kind of a democratic, if you will, or a respectful way of parenting. I'm completely all about it, and I'm all about it because it works beautifully in my home.
Hmm.
Um, but it does not mean that we have to give up all boundaries, and
No.
certainly it doesn't mean that we have to give up authority, right? Like,
Right.
I just found a lot of ease when it came from giving my child options, but still having to do the things that I want her to do, right? So it wasn't like, "Well, would you like to brush your teeth this evening?" It was more like, "Would you rather brush your teeth or get in the bath first?"
Kind of like choice.
Yeah,
There's a book that talks about that you give them you're not telling them a free fall, right? You're giving them a choice, right? Would you brush your teeth or take a bath first? So I'm not telling you, would you like to take a bath,
right,
but I'm telling you, which one would you like to do
right.
before the other? I think that it's beautiful that you really made it cater to your daughter. And I think sometimes we forget as parents that one, our kids are different. If you have more than one, that's definitely true in my household. And two, your kids are people that have the way that I parent now came from a professor. She literally said in class when I was pregnant, she said, I parent my kid based on the kind of young adult I want him to be. And what I hear from you is, I want my kid to make these decisions, because we forget that they become kids that don't. I remember somebody was trying to sign me up for their coaching program. And she told me, I said, well, I need to talk to my spouse first. Like, this is a lot of money that you're asking for, to the tune of thousands of dollars. I need to
Mhm.
talk to my spouse.
Yeah,
First of all, I wasn't really interested because of the way she was coaching me on the phone. I'm like, I'm not hiring you. Like, I don't like this feeling of being coached. I know what works well for me. If there are therapists listening, I am very much so a Rogers, very person centered. Ask me questions. I am less of a Gestalt. Tell me what to do, and very firm about it. I will, if you're in authority over me, I have to respond to both sometimes, right? We can't
right,
control our supervisors, but
right,
if you are so I feel like with kids, it's kind of the same thing, that they're individuals, right? And we want them to be able to make sound decisions. I think today that one of my, a girl I knew, her parents used to just give her the child support money from the other parent. And because of that, they're really great with finances and money, better than
mhm,
anybody else in their family. And so I
mhm,
feel like sometimes we forget that they will only be kids for 18 years. At
that's right.
some point, they have to grow up and be prepared to be adults. So, like in my house, my son gets to negotiate some things. People, oh my God, your son. Yes, because when he's a man in corporate America, I want him not to be scared to negotiate his salary. A
Yes,
couple of years
yes,
ago, teacher, he said, how about this? And he got in trouble, and he was like, how about this? I know that I did good here, but I didn't do good here. How about I don't get either one? I'll get the happy face or the sad face. And then I try to keep working for what's next. And she said, I'll take that. I'll take
mhm,
that. She didn't give him a point, and she didn't take one away. So he stayed in this neutral zone. So of course, when I looked at him, I'm like, oh, he doesn't have that many points, but he literally, you know what I mean? He's like, how about this? And so I feel like when I see that working outside of my house to somebody that potentially has in his case, the grade, then you're comfortable doing it with somebody that writes your salary. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because that's the kind of adult. And so I hear what you say about your daughter is, I'm teaching her to make decisions, what choices look like, so that she's comfortable making these decisions when she's no longer in my household, right? And then I hear
mhm,
with the routine, what kind of child do you have? For me, we had to start it earlier, right? Like you said, or give more time. So I start, we call it a wind down at 7:45, and we go to his room. By then he's already had bath, he's already eaten, because a lot of times, especially with COVID, we may come in, take showers, and be in regular clothes, depending on if we leave the house to go outside or something, because we want to get the school stuff off, the school germs off. I mean,
yeah,
with these numbers and high, and the masks are optional now, I'm like, I ain't taking no chances. So,
right,
you know what I mean? So I think that one, that having a routine that works for your family, two, letting your daughter be a co-creator of that routine, right? And then giving her a choice for where in the routine things go, right? Does she
Mhm.
need more time? Does she need less time? I was probably one of those kids that needed more time, and me and my mother definitely fought about
Yeah.
bedtime. I mean, it got to be one time she said, well, look, the more you're late, the earlier you're going to go to bed. And I mean, it got to be ridiculous. I was probably like 14 and my bedtime at one point was 5:30. And that's when she
Ooh.
said, what is it with you? Like, I cannot get you to, but now that I think about what you say, it probably was, I just needed more time on my bedtime routine. I probably needed to make it longer, start earlier so that I'm still getting my rest, but I'm having these things in place, like liking to read, because in high school you have work, you have
Mhm.
extracurriculars, you don't have a lot of free time. So I love that you say my daughter's a co-creator in her routine.
Yeah.
This works for my family. We're letting her make these choices about what comes along in the routine. I tell parents this for daily schedules. Kids are smarter than we give them credit for. I have my younger clients make their daily schedule. What do you do at 7? When do you get up to eat? When do you, and let them tell you where they want stuff. First I want to eat, then I want to get dressed. What does it hurt? You know what I
Right,
mean? A lot of
right.
times I want their room clean. Tell them to give you a day and time, and don't go looking at that room if it's not that day and time, because you're gonna stress yourself out. My son's
Mhm,
day was Tuesday. It used to be, and then I said, you know what, you're forgetting on Tuesday. You got to pick another day. You know
mhm.
what I mean? So even in the choice, you can teach them to monitor what works for them, because it may find that your daughter says, you know what, mom, having a longer routine, I'm kind of tired in the morning. Can I shorten it? Or mom, you know what? I need more time on the end. I really like the connection with you. Can we make it longer? You know, I'm willing to give up outside time. I'm willing to, you know what I mean? They
Mhm.
start to really create a lifestyle for themselves that they can track and that they can keep up with. So I
Yeah,
really think that's beautiful.
yes. And, you know, it actually touches on something really important too, but is so vital here, no matter if we're talking about, you know, you and your career and whether you want to leave your job, right? Or you don't know what the next step is, which I know you talked about at the top of the hour. I feel like the stuff that we're just talking about now, right? As moms, engaging our children in asking them to help communicate and identify their needs and their wants and their struggles and all
Yes.
that helps to create a self-knowing
Right.
that I know I did not have as a kid. As a Gen Xer, I feel like I grew up for the most part, you know, the same, if you will, of everybody else in that generation, which was very, you know, authoritative, right? Like
Yep.
you followed exactly what your parents told you to do. So, you know, then it was very much do as I say, not as I do, you know, get up, just do it.
Right.
We don't care about your feelings. We don't
Right.
care about
Right.
what's going on, right?
Right. And then
And
we all
I'm
grew up
gonna
not being aware of our feelings and being emotionally unavailable, and everybody's looking at you crazy, like you're not aware, you don't know, you can't label, you can't manage, or have, you know what I mean? So yeah,
exactly, exactly. So I feel like I'm helping to cultivate her own self-awareness
right,
way earlier than
right.
I did myself. I mean, the fact that I didn't even pretty much I don't feel like I even really gained mine until I, you know, went through life coaching, which is kind of embarrassing to say, but at the same time, nobody taught me. I didn't know, right?
And to be
So,
honest, more common than you think, because that's why they used to tell us as therapists, get ready. Like they used to tell we're about to unpack all this junk that you
come
coming in
on.
with, because you cannot see clients with this junk. Get ready. So it's more
Right.
common, and they even tell us to keep it and to manage. You need as a therapist, you need a therapist.
Yeah,
So it's more common than you think that we go along in life and think we're fine until we're not.
right. And the same thing in coaching, right? I mean, I thought I was going to pursue a career in coaching until they were like, "Oh, you need to go through your own stuff so that way you know what the client is about to go through." And you're like, "Oh, well, that makes sense." Until
All
you
right.
start to go through it and you're like, "Crap."
Like this wasn't the plan. Have you ever heard of Brene Brown? She talks about this as a therapist. She went to therapy. She said I had a little breakdown. She did a great TED talk on a shame of vulnerability. She said, how many of you guys know it's not little?
Mhm.
Like I had a complete breakdown, because that's what she said with her research that she did. Basically, started to break off the belief she had been carrying her whole life, and she's like, yeah, it didn't go over well. She said, I immediately had to go into therapy to wrestle with this.
Yeah,
So the life coaching and going through it and understanding, and then being transformed on the other side of that, totally relatable.
yeah, I love her. And I actually did a workshop recently, about the concept of belonging to ourselves.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and it was really based upon a lot of the quotes. I haven't read her book yet, but I want to. I think it's Braving the Wilderness. which touches
Yeah.
on the topic
She
of
just came out
belonging.
with a new one called Atlas of the Heart. So there's
I know.
great. She's got a lot of them.
I wanna read that too. So yeah, I adore her. She's an incredible resource for sure.
Well, Tina, thank you so much for coming. So all that's left, what are you going to confess? What is your confession today?
Well, it may not be as profound now that we've talked all this time, right? But the confession is that I am a completely selfish mom, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Nice. Well, I mean, to be honest, I mean, that is profound because the last thing you think to do is put together selfish and mom in the same sentence, let alone let that stand alone as a sentence. So I
Yeah.
think that honoring yourself helps honor your children and teaches them balance, right? Because then they know that I have boundaries as a person, that I need to take care of me internally, and then I can serve others. You know what I mean? So I think that that's really a way to model for our kids what self-reflection and really doing the inner work looks like.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for
Well,
having
thank
me.
you. Thank you for coming. We'd love to have you again. We're so excited. So, mindset shift, guys. This was really good. So, if you really want to go back and listen, talk about the journey, careers. Next week we have Biz Boss Mom Teresa Wright, and we're going to be talking probably family, candid conversations about marriage. And she has something called Making Money Out of the Box. She's a business coach. She has a group of women that she coaches in business, and usually a couple of them are entrepreneurs. They're either mothers, grandmothers, aunts. They have some kind of maternal instinct, whether it's just they take care of the neighborhood kids or they have kids of their own. And so I'm excited to have her next week to continue our leveling up of our adult career day. All right. See you guys later. Bye.